So guys, we're back at Hooton Park, and unlike last time, today we're going to be mastering the track properly and starting to get my lap times down to proper race pace. However, this time there's a catch. So today I've hired a coach who's been in and around karting for the last 15 years and works with the current champion at this track, and he's going to be teaching me everything I need to know about Hooton Park. So as day one rolled around, I was up nice and early and down to track for 9:30 in the morning, as track opens at 10 and we wanted to get there half an hour early so that we could do a proper track walk. And this was to allow me to understand where I'm placing my kart on the track and how I'm taking each corner. And honestly, you wouldn't believe how much this actually helped me, as I'd only jumped in the kart 2 weeks earlier and just done what I thought was right, taking the normal racing lines. And this showed me where I was going wrong and how there were actually a couple of shortcuts that you could use to make your lap times a little bit quicker. I also did agree that I wouldn't use any audio from this footage, and these clips are just to give you guys an idea of what my day here looked like and what it included. So once we'd finished the track walk, we then went and got my kart, took it to the grid, and we went out for our first session of the day so I could put into practice everything that I'd learned. However, as you can see, I'm just sliding all over the place, and this is because the conditions on that day were just terrible. I think we'd had about a week of rain leading up to this point, and genuinely there was just no grip whatsoever. And when you pair that with the fact that my tyres were literally on their last legs, it just created horrible, horrible conditions to be out on. And this clip comes from about 4 laps in, where I should really be starting to get a lot of tyre temperature, but I just can't get anything. And this pretty much sums up the day. And just when I thought I couldn't shunt it anymore, I ended up properly losing the rears and sliding straight onto the grass. And after another big slide and a massive loss in confidence, we decided to come back into the pits and wait for the weather to get a little bit better. So the rest of that day one was pretty much just spent in the tent, as the weather just seemed to be getting worse and worse as the day went on. However, it did give me the opportunity to actually have a look at my car, and I actually spent the rest of that day taking the engine and all sorts apart and just putting it back together and starting to understand how the car actually works. So as day 2 arrived, it was looking a much nicer day to be out on track. The sun was out, there was high temperatures on track, and we were just going to have so much more grip that we didn't have last time. And similar to day 1, we got the kart out, put it in the tent, and messed with the setup so that we could just move on to sorting all the driver side of my improvement. As you can see as well in these clips, I've also sorted a micron so that I can track my lap times and see how much I'm improving each lap. And just to give you guys an idea of what a lap around Hooton Park is like at race pace, you're probably looking around a low 35, high 34 second lap. Now what you didn't see as part of this video is because I had a whole week leading up to this point when I was getting back out on track after the initial track walk, and I had all the footage on my camera, I just started studying this relentlessly for the whole week so that when I got here I was prepped for what I needed to do. And doing this definitely paid off, as I'll explain in a minute. So on the next lap, as I came down the main straight, the coach gives me the signal to head into the pits so he can make some minor changes. Now this time round we only made a minor change, which was decreasing the rear tyre pressures a bit so that I had some more grip out on track, and then we headed out for the next session. So far it was going great, and I was now slowly starting to decrease my lap times, but that's when the unexpected happened. So as you can see, I'm heading towards turn 1, which is a massive braking zone where you're losing about 40 mph in speed in less than 2 seconds. And as I'm unfamiliar with this track, I hit the brakes far too hard and sent myself flying into the barriers. Now heading into this crash, I thought it was going to hurt a lot more than it actually did, but with my rib protector on, the only thing I actually damaged was my confidence.
That looks fun. Yeah, alright.
Like I say, get your braking first. You need to go a bit slower in, yeah?
Yep.
So after that big crash, I was a little bit cautious heading into turn 1, but I decided to start being what I call a blue driver, which is someone who doesn't go straight over the limits and instead starts with their own limits and builds up towards the actual limits that you can do on the track. And I do really think this helped me going forwards, as coming to turn 1 again, I get the correct rotation in the kart and I use all the curb on the exit, meaning I'm carrying the most speed possible through the corner. If we have a look at the same turn 1 a lap later, I'm braking at the right time, I'm turning in and I am getting a snap of oversteer, but I'm countering that successfully and I'm getting through the corner cleanly without carrying too much speed and going into the grass. So now that I'd moved past my problem with turn 1, we moved on to having a look at the chicane. And here I was being instructed to use more of the curbs on each side so that I could carry more speed through and lose less by turning into each part of the corner. This did however cause me issues for the entry into the sweeping right-hander, as I'm exiting the chicane far too close to the inside for that next corner, and I'm not getting the right exit speed that I could be getting if I was further to the outside so I could hit the apex properly. Either way, this was looking like something we would fix in the second session out, as this brought the first session to an end and we were going to review how I was doing so far. So I actually don't have any footage of this part, but as we headed back to the tent and had a look over the micron, I'd set my best lap time at a 36.9, which according to my coach, on the same tyres in these conditions, race pace would be around high 35, so I was only a second off race pace, having only been to this track twice before. So as you can probably guess, I was absolutely made up with that time, but it did give me only one thing to aim for the rest of the day, and that was to cut another 2/10 minimum off my time so that I was less than a second away from actual race pace. So the rest of the day was pretty uneventful. It was just me starting to clean up my race lines, improve my entry and exit speed from corners, and slowly starting to move my braking point further and further down the road. And I was starting to get a lot more consistent and a lot more accurate at hitting the apex at turn 1, and I was carrying the right amount of speed through that was allowing me to use the correct amount of runoff possible. And just as I thought I was getting comfortable with the track, I started to make mistakes on turn 2 where I was carrying too much speed and heading onto either the rumble strip or just straight onto the grass. But this problem was easily fixed by either braking earlier or turning in slightly later, so I wasn't carrying that much speed straight through onto the grass. Then on my way back past the pits, I gave the signal that I'd be heading in this lap, as I don't think I had that much fuel left at the time.
Am I right on fuel?
Yeah, you're alright for a few more laps. Yeah.
Now to me, this last little session was to just allow me to put all my cards on the table and give it everything I had for a couple more laps, and so that's exactly what I did. And so here's one more lap from me, giving it everything and putting everything I'd learned into practice. And after a very intense lap, I managed to bring it home for a time of a 36.6, which would put me only 6 or 7 tenths off of what race pace would be in these exact conditions. And so after an entire day of messing with the kart setup, changing my race lines, and adjusting how hard and at what distance I brake, I managed to get the time that I wanted, which puts me really close to race pace. So with enough practice in the next couple of weeks, hopefully I can be battling near the front when my first race day comes along.